Oh, yeah. All right. So I think that means we're live. I don't know. It's our first countdown entrance, so we're going to go with it. You may know the man on your screen, but I'm going to introduce him in just a second. But that's right. The Into the Lab podcast is live, so we're excited for tonight's episode. NBA Draft Talk with the man, the myth, the legend himself, Kenneth Cotterill. Kenny, welcome back to Into the Lab, bud.
I mean, I was expecting a little bit more of an intro. You know, I am the ITL Dynasty League champion. I'm the ITL NFL Pick'em champion. The list goes on and on, really. I've just made so many big contributions to the show. But no, I'm super appreciative to be back. Obviously been away for a little bit just with work, but super excited to be on here and talk some sports.
I mean, I think the Labsters have missed it, man. It's been a while. I gotta be honest. The Houston Rocket banter was kind of missing as we sucked this year. So I mean, I'm okay with you missing. So it's okay. But now that we're in off season, we have the number 2 pick. I'm excited to talk about that. We have a really fun-filled episode tonight, especially because we get to compare notes on what we have for draft prospects, and I'm really interested in some of the guys because I feel like they're going to be there for some of these Rocket picks. And so you're going to tell me I'm crazy. Sam Fashion, Angela Mose, you guys are out. Thank you guys for your support. The stream team coming out in great strides tonight. You know what? I'm your host, Ernest Silva. I probably already said that, but let's just shoot it again. The countdown's throwing me off. But yeah, sponsored by Blue Collar Media Group, the one that is on my left shoulder here. And we're excited to bring you a new website coming up, www.bluecollarmg.com. Probably been promising that for months now, but I promise it'll be here soon. Check it out coming up next. Now, our main advertisement today is going to be that BCMG retreat down in South Texas, August 19th through the 23rd. We're going to have some fun down there. We have the Hoopathon happening. We have a BCMG fantasy football draft happening. Tons of special guests. So keep a lookout for updates on that and some digital ads coming out for you guys. But tonight, Kenny and I are going to debate and talk about some of the major names out there that in the Draft Central. But of course, announcer, why don't you bring us in right and ring that bell? All right. If you heard the bell, then you're going really crazy. There is no bell live. We do have a bell on the podcast, but you're hearing things. Go get checked. Right now, we're going to talk about the NBA Draft Command Center. We're going to talk about some three prospects. But before we dive into the prospects, we're really going to talk about that NBA Finals. We finally get to react. Giannis Antetokounmpo, I think I said that right, is a champion. He's a Finals MVP. He did it. Fulfilled his promise to Kobe Bryant. The Bucks win 4 straight games to win the championship. Kenny, I gotta admit, I didn't see it coming.
I felt like it was coming after game 4, but obviously when you're down early like they were, I figured the Suns took care of business at home. They'll go take one on the road, close it out in 5 or 6, and that'll be it. But that game 4 meltdown by Phoenix, that just can't happen in the NBA Finals, and unfortunately it did. That fourth quarter, I mean, you had Giannis with the crazy block, a lot of great defensive plays there, to be honest. And then, you know, obviously they're scoring in bunches. Their big 3 showed up in game 5. I mean, you look at Middleton, Drew, and Giannis, they just outplayed Chris Paul, Ayton, and Booker, and they all played well in that game. And then obviously last night, Giannis just took over. And I think he finally decided, look, if we're going to get it done, I mean, especially early, like Middleton had like 9 points at the half. Drew was struggling, and it's like, look, if I'm going to get this title, I have to do it myself. He knew that that's when he had to close it out. You can't go back to Phoenix for game 7. You can't expect to win multiple games on the road in the NBA Finals. And I mean, shout out to him. He was absolutely incredible. All the people who are talking about how Giannis isn't talented, he's just whatever, that kind of got put to rest last night.
I am one of those, and I tweeted about it, and I said it at the end of the game. Totally changed my opinion on Giannis Antetokounmpo. Took one game. It took one game. And here's the big reason, right? We talk about the big moments, right? There was big moments last night. We talk about the 50 piece. That was huge. That was great too. But to stay humble through all of it and also be able to grab a ship and how much everybody loves him and doing it in a small market team and doing it when all these super teams are formed, the whole thing, right? The whole story. And to him to seal it like that and with emphasis. And there were multiple games with emphasis that Giannis or what do you got? Giannis, right? I don't want to say his name wrong, but the way that he was the alley oop finish, right? The block to save the game, the dagger free throws, all the things that we criticize on where is that in the playoffs, all answered. Every storyline answered. Everything for a 26-year-old man who was on a team that only won 15 games, 7 years ago. I'm sure you've heard that tons today. But at the same time, it reminds me of the Astros, right? Won 13 games, and then they come back and they win a championship. A championship, but whatever it may be. But yeah. So the Bucks win the championship. Now, the question was at the beginning of the season. I think you might have been on this episode. Was if Giannis wins the championship, does that mean he stays there the rest of his career? And if he doesn't, does that mean he leaves? Where do you fall now with Giannis winning a ship with Chris Middleton?
I think he's there for life. I don't see any reason why he would leave at this point. He has his championship. That's not to say he can't get more. I mean, we saw him drop 50 in the finals last night, so I think the sky's the limit for this team. Everyone will point to Brooklyn obviously getting healthier. The Lakers, of course, the second the game's over. Oh, Chris Paul's heading to the Lakers, and it's like, relax. Like, the game literally just finished. Like, give him a minute to sort of collect himself and then decide what he wants to do moving forward. But Milwaukee's got a lot of great pieces in place. I'll give a quick shout out to Mike Budenholzer, the coach that I've been more critical of than any in the league for finally getting a championship. He's had a lot of great teams. As much as I think that's just Giannis being Giannis and ultimately bringing him that championship, shout out to him. He's now an NBA champ as a head coach, and that's something that can never be taken away from him. But you look at this roster, they've got it locked up for the next 3 or 4 years. There's a chance they could win multiple championships with this group. I know everyone will point to, well, once Brooklyn gets healthy, I mean, they'll beat the Bucks. Well, now the Bucks have that swagger of being a champion, and I don't think they're necessarily going to roll over them. Like, this is still a very good defensive team. When you've got Drew, Giannis, Middleton's no slouch. They've still got Lopez, PJ Tucker if they bring him back. That's a very good defensive unit, and it's tough to score on them. And we saw Giannis do it on a hyperextended knee. So right. The sky is still the limit for this guy. So I think he's going to stay there long term. I don't see any reason why he would leave at this juncture of his career. Now, obviously, we don't know what happens with injuries, what happens with players coming in and out. Like, maybe they have a couple first-round exits. Players always fall out with management. But as of right now, I would say he's with the Bucks long term.
And they don't have a terrible draft position, right? They may not hold a first rounder, but they got the 34th pick in the draft, which is pretty close up there. And some people, whiff the bill when they pick the right picks, and you get a first rounder in that top spot in the second round, right? So,
and DiVincenzo wasn't even playing. Like people don't even
know
that, and that's a massive piece for them. And
Connaughton took those minutes, yeah. Yeah, so the Bucks definitely have a future. The Suns have a future. I even with just Ayton and Booker, if Paul were to leave. Definitely a future there for Phoenix as well. But it gets much harder for Phoenix with teams getting much, much healthier next year with a real offseason for most. So Phoenix is going to have a lot of questions on what they're going to do with Chris Paul and what the future is, right? I think Chris Paul has to weigh in on what he wants to do here. And it's a good segue. I know you hate talking about it right after the championship, right? We dearly touched on the Bucks, but you're the Lakers guy, right? You're my Lakers analyst, and do you even want Chris Paul in LA?
I mean, I want him because I think he's got a couple years, which is exactly what LeBron has. And we saw it last year when LeBron or AD aren't playing, like, that's just not a good group of basketball players. And I don't really care what it costs in order to go out and get that third star, because we've already given up our future. Like, draft picks wise down the road, there's not a lot there. We've got Anthony Davis. We don't know how long he's going to play. Like, everyone talks about how he's still super young. Well, he's also super hurt all the time.
So true.
So what is to say that he's going to have a 15-year NBA career? He could very well have a 10 or 12-year NBA career, and then ultimately injuries take over. So the window is now. Like, they have LeBron, who is hurt in and out of the lineup all year. Same with Davis. You go and get Chris Paul and run it back. I don't see anyone beating a big three of that out west. once again, if healthy, because also it's not like Chris Paul has been immune to injuries in his career. So,
I mean, obviously.
so if we get Chris Paul for 2 years, you win one more championship, then I consider that a huge success. I would way rather take the chance on that than go out and try and pick up these mid-tier free agents that we're looking at, like Dennis Schroeder demanding like $20 million after shooting like 1 for 10 every other game in the playoffs. Not a guy that I'm interested in bringing back. And if it takes giving up KCP, Kuzma, Horton Tucker, whatever it is, you got to go and get that done because the window is very small.
Now, and this is a different conversation, but for me, Chris Paul going to LA basically means LeBron and Chris Paul ride it out together, right? This is the last stint. From my understanding is that LeBron is trying to ride out so he can play at least one season with Bronny. That's kind of the inside knowledge there that I have for what I know LeBron James, right? Space Jam 2, to my opinion, was a pretty good movie, which we can talk about too. But so if LA is not going to have a lottery pick, you're not getting Bronny. So is LeBron a rental right now for LA?
I mean, Bronny's still a few years out. So, I mean, LeBron has said that he wants to finish his career with the Lakers. That obviously could change at the snap of his fingers. He could just decide, you know what, I want to go and play with my son for 1 year, and that's what he decides. But I think LeBron plays as long as he wants to. He seems a little bit checked out mentally, at least this year it seemed that way, as he's obviously got the movie. He's trying to set himself up. There's a reason why he came to LA. It was not for the basketball side. It was definitely for the life after basketball side, because he's trying to own a team. He said it. He's been on record saying he wants to make money so he can own an NBA team one day. And I think that's his ultimate goal. So I don't even necessarily know if he's going to ride it out until Bronny gets there, if he can own a team and draft Bronny.
Oh, that's interesting. So that's an interesting point, right? Because he'll be a billionaire. And,
for sure.
And he'll be able to actually, I didn't think about that. That's a good point, right? That's a good point. Okay. I'm going to put it out there, Kenny, before we move on to these faster topics. Okay. Space Jam 2. It was actually good. I don't say it, but I'm going to ask you, what's your rating out of 10 for Space Jam 2?
So I'm probably a terrible basketball fan for having not seen it yet, but
wow.
But I will say this much. Everyone expecting this to be like an Oscar-winning movie needs to relax. Like, first of all, you watch back the original Space Jam. Space Jam is exciting because it's Michael Jordan playing with Looney Tunes. Like, the actual movie itself is not a great movie. It has a great cameo of Bill Murray. You got Larry Bird playing golf in there. Obviously, Charles Barkley and all the other Monstars and everything. But this is a movie for children. And if you're expecting this to be some incredible tale and LeBron as director and that's not what it is. This movie is meant for kids. If you can just get past that and just enjoy Looney Tunes and basketball colliding, then that's what you're going to get from this movie. You can't go in with too high of expectations.
Yeah, that brings me to my sponsor, McDonald's, right? If you send in the code Space Jam to any of your meals on Uber, you actually get a Marvin the Martian jersey. It's a good surprise. Yeah, I think it's like 1 in 15. Anyways, they're not my sponsor. That's a joke. But McDonald's, you're missing out. Look, so I rewatched Space Jam, right? I said, okay, what is Space Jam? And what do I feel about it as a 31-year-old guy? I watched it. Space Jam, to me, had holes. Okay, it wasn't great. It's an 8 out of 10 for me. I still gave it an 8 out of 10 as a 30-year-old. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't be crazy here, because I watched Space Jam 2. For what it was, I gave it a 6.5 out of 10. It's not that bad. It's not as bad as people are like, oh, this is the worst movie of all time. Honestly, if you watch Ready Player One, you like Space Jam 2. That's all I'm going to say about it. Like, I liked Ready Player One. I liked Space Jam 2. I was actually a fan of it. I watched the whole damn thing. Matter of fact, I had a little tear when something happened, but I'm not going to tell you what happened.
Yeah, you can't be dropping spoilers.
I'm not going to throw out spoiler out there. I had a little tear, though. All right, you got to admit, that was there. So, yes.
Space Jam, like, I rewatched it 6 months ago, and it's the same thing. Like, obviously there's holes in it, but it's part of your childhood. You go back and watch those movies. It's like rewatching Disney movies. You just go back and you're like, man, it takes me back to when I was watching it here, when I was doing this or living here or whatever it is. Like, that's what Space Jam is. And that's what this generation Space Jam is going to be. Like, the young kids that are watching it.
Kenny, you got Space Jam 2 with Looney Tunes. It also had Harry Potter. It had Game of Thrones. King Kong, Iron Giant. Guys, I don't care. It wasn't just about Looney Tunes. It had everything. And yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes, it's a WB commercial. It's a a Warner Brothers ad, right? The entire yeah, of course it is. All movies are like that. Go back and watch any of your favorite movies. There's advertising. Anyways, I'm not tolerating that speech. 6.5 out of 10. That's what I'm giving. It was actually not that bad. What are we here for? That's right. The NBA Draft Command Center. If you have a different opinion, I encourage you comment. What out of 10 do you give Space Jam 2? We'll put those in there as we're plugging in. But we're here for the NBA Draft Command Center and our finals react. We already gave the finals react, but I don't want to forget this round is brought to us by Taquito Express. Taquito Express, wonderful friends of the show, family even, and we'll be seeing them at the BCMG retreat down in Brownsville and Harlingen, Texas. We're excited about that. Let's talk some basketball, right? Let's go right into the NBA draft. A week from today, 8 days from today, we are going to be sitting down. We're going to be watching Detroit all over the screen because they've got the number 1 pick. And Kenny, I'm going to put you on the spot first. The Detroit Pistons with the number 1 pick of the draft select.
Cade Cunningham.
It's
And I don't see any reason why you wouldn't. Everyone will point to Killian Hayes is already there. Those guys can be interchangeable. Cade Cunningham can play off the ball. Killian Hayes can play off the ball. And ultimately, are you really passing on Cade Cunningham because Killian Hayes? Like he had an okay rookie season, but nothing about that told me that he is the point guard of the future of the Detroit Pistons.
right.
So don't overthink it and just draft Cade Cunningham, because don't be that team that goes down in history as the passed on Cade Cunningham, instead drafted somebody else, and then you're regretting it down the road.
Yeah, it's Cade Cunningham and nobody else. I'm with you on that as well. I think Cade Cunningham's going to be a bona fide star. I think he's the safest choice even at number 1. That it's just an all-around player. He's a stud. Our good friend of the show and sports scientist Davis Cordova would be preaching up and down Cade Cunningham, but we know why. Let's ask this, Kenny. A percent scale, right? And I'll ask you the same question if we pop in draft night or if we talk before draft night. Percent scale, that pick gets traded. Where are you at?
I mean, I think it should be 0, but I think it's probably closer to 25%.
Oh, that's high. That's high. Yeah.
But the only reason why is because if for whatever Houston is enamored with him, and maybe they're thinking, well, we could use a scorer like Green, we could use a big man like Mobley, maybe they like Suggs for whatever reason, because they've been working out all these guys. Like, it's not like they've come out and said, number 1 pick, it's Cade, we're not trading it. Like, they haven't put that out there yet. So to put it at like even 10%, I think would be incorrect this close to the draft. So if they came to them and said, hey, we'll throw in a few players, we're throwing in our first, like, just move back 1 pick, and we'll throw in picks down the road, you would at least entertain the offer. I'm not saying you do it, but if you're Detroit, like, you're not winning right away anyways. Well, what pieces do you have? Jeremy Grant, Killian Hayes, 17 other power forwards. Like, there's not a lot.
10 better teams on that conference.
Yeah. So what are you rushing for? Like, if you decide, you know what, I want to go the OKC route. I want to just stockpile draft picks. I want to do a full rebuild, blow it up, have these guys that we have just help mentor these young guys, and then we're back here in 3, 4, 5 years, then do it. But I think Cade should be your number 1 pick because you have a potential franchise-altering talent at number 1. Not to say those other guys aren't, but that would be my thoughts on it.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm with you on that. It's going to take me to my next conversation, which is going to be about the Rockets number 2. So let's just go there, right? The Houston Rockets on the clock. They don't have the number 1 pick. Let's just say the number 2 pick of the draft. So if the Houston Rockets with the number 2 pick and Cade is off the board, in my opinion, it's Jalen Green and nobody else. And this is why they're not working out Evan Mobley. So the fact that they're not even working him out, I'm not thinking that's in the plan. I think they're going Christian Wood, and then they're going with Kevin Porter Jr., and they're bringing in Jalen Green. I think that's what they're going to write, that big 3, that youth, and they're going to go, and they think Jalen Green might be the next big thing. I think so does Detroit, which is why it's enticing, because I think Houston's number 1 is Cade, but if Cade's gone, I think it's Jalen and nobody else. And rumors, of course, rumors are rumors, swirl that Jalen's already been promised the number 2 spot, no matter who it is, between Detroit and Houston. So I think it's kind of a done deal, right? It's just if that trade happens or not. So I think Jalen fits with Houston as well. I think they need the scoring. They're going to need they're going to have that liability on defense anyways, and KPJ wants to handle the ball. They have Jayshawn Tate, what's arguably the rookie of the year last season, and then you have Christian Wood, right? So I guess it could be argued, but I'm saying it's not. What do you think? Where should Houston go, and where do you think they go?
I think they take either Jalen and they're not going to be disappointed. I agree. I don't think they need to work out Evan Mobley. I don't think that he fits next to Christian Wood. Also, the NBA, like, when's the last time we saw a power forward and center as your 1-2 go and win a championship? I think overall they need to go and get scoring, which is why I do think they would go Jalen Green. But Houston has a lot of individually talented guys. Like Kevin Porter Jr., incredible individual talent. Jayshawn Tate too, Christian Wood as well, which is why I like Suggs there, because what I think he brings, and we saw it at Gonzaga. They had Timmy, they had Kispert, they had Ayayi, like they had all these guys, and he came in right away, and it felt like he was the floor general as a freshman. And that's what I think you guys need, is a guy who can control the offense. And I know Kevin Porter Jr. can bring up the ball, but Suggs is also interchangeable. You could also start him at the 2 if you wanted, and that's why I like his versatility there. Green is just a bucket. Like, he's going to come and average probably 15 or 20 points his rookie year. But if you want a guy to instill a culture and be your floor general and be your leader out there and kind of rein in these guys, because they're very sporadic. Outside of Wood, like Tate and Kevin Porter Jr., they're pretty sporadic out there. So that's why I would lean a guy like Jalen Suggs, because he could rein them in, truly get the very best out of those guys. So that way, moving forward, Houston could have a better overall unit.
But if you can grab Suggs at 3 or 4, right?
I mean, I would consider trading back.
Right. So like you would trade back to a Toronto who may look for their next big player, right? Somebody to pair with Gary Trent Jr. and somebody like Green. I don't know. I'm just trying to think here, because Lowry's a free agent, correct?
Yep. And so they have Van Vliet locked up. Obviously, I think and people don't talk about it enough, but Chris Boucher is a very young center that they have that has a lot of talent, especially on the defensive side. So I don't know if they would even necessarily lean Mobley. I think Toronto's more likely to trade back than trade up, because I think they're going to sign and trade Lowry. It probably makes the most sense. If they don't, then Masai Ujiri has a lot of explaining to do, how he let Kyle Lowry walk for absolutely nothing. And Toronto fans don't want to talk about that, because to them, Masai is like the Messiah in Toronto. So just something to keep an eye on there is whether or not Lowry is going to actually get signed and traded, or if they're just going to let him walk for nothing, the best Raptor in franchise history.
So I've set this, and I just straight clutch, another gamer from the stream team making an appearance. Appreciate you, bro. Thank you for the support. The big thing about Jalen Suggs, and I said this when we first grabbed the pick, I wanted Suggs. Like, I was like, all Suggs, number 2, right? I was like, that's our guy. That's perfect. I wanted him more than Cade anyways. It's a fit thing for me. And then this whole Jalen Green aspect came peaking. Then it was like, no, it's Mobley or Green. I'm like, how? It should be Suggs. Like, what are we talking about? And I remember Reg Huggins was one of the listeners, Lapsters, good friend of the show, was commenting back and forth like, no, it's Suggs. You guys are crazy, because we were talking Green or Mobley at one point. And I think it's a fit. I just don't think it's 2. I don't think he's a 2. So not like position wise, but I don't think he's the second draft pick this year in the draft. Anyways, let's go to the third pick. We like to do these again. We're a week out from the draft. The Cleveland Cavaliers with the third pick of the NBA draft select, and this seems to be pretty easy if we go from Cunningham to Green. Who would be your number 3 pick?
I feel like it's the other Jalen.
Interesting. Okay.
But the main reason why is because I don't know why you made the trade for Jared Allen if you have no interest in him being like a center for you long term. Because he's incredibly talented and very young, and he showed it in Brooklyn prior to KD and them getting there when they had that playoff run with D'Angelo Russell and that crew. Like, he's a very good center, very young piece. So I don't know why you would want to go and add somebody like Evan Mobley into the mix if you have that young piece there. If they're content on Jared Allen being their backup, well, they're also going to have to pay him. So that's where I would be a little bit confused there. If they're just going to let him walk, I think it would be a big mistake. But once again, it's Cleveland. Outside of having LeBron over the last 20 years, they haven't really shown that they are the best at evaluating talent. They've got Colin Sexton, but he's been rumored pretty much to every team that's a contender. Apparently, everyone's in on Colin Sexton now. But I don't know why Cleveland would give up one of the only assets that has actual value for them. So I would be completely fine if they went and got Jalen Suggs, because I'm not convinced on Darius Garland. I know it would be the third straight year that they would draft a point guard, and they would obviously, there'd be a lot of people upset about it, but I think Suggs is that talented. And if you're drafting at 3, are you really then going to go off the board? Because then what's available? You going Kuminga, you're going Moody, Boo Knight. Like, it depends who they like. And I haven't seen who in particular they've been working out, but to me, it's either Jalen, and I don't think they'd be disappointed.
Yeah, there is fun. Another streamer coming in for support. That's what I love about the stream team. We're all about family. They appreciate the support. But let me piggyback off what you're saying, because I'm hearing a very, very strong hot take coming from you, and I'm gonna see where it leads us. And I added into our lineup. Okay, so hold on. I am all about Mobley going to Cleveland. Okay, because I do think they're just gonna get the best player. I think that's just what they're gonna do. But if Cleveland didn't, right? This is a hot take, guys. Mobley free falls. Like, he starts dipping. Toronto doesn't take him. Orlando doesn't take him. OKC grabs Mobley at 6. Hot take.
Did Davis write that one for you?
I'm just saying.
Okay. I just had to double check before.
Yeah, no, I just decided right now. Mobley at 6 to OKC is the hot take for ITL tonight.
I find it very tough to see him falling past Orlando, because I know that they have Wendell Carter Jr., but they're in no position to pass on Evan Mobley. Like,
but they have Mo.
Come on.
Mo is not a bad player. Bamba's an elite center.
Okay. Outside of the song, Nate, give me a highlight from Mo Bamba's career.
Oh, he's been injured.
So they've got an injured center in Mo Bamba.
Wait. But we don't replace
another injured center.
We don't go looking to replace Anthony Davis with another power forward.
There's a massive difference between those players, and that is a reach. No, like, I find it tough to see Mobley as a free fall. And if Orlando really wants him, I think they would move up to 4, and Toronto would just try and trade back, because they don't necessarily need a Mobley. I think they more so need a guy like a Moody or a Boo Knight, Kuminga, Scotty Barnes, another guy that's about.
It's exactly. I'm so looking at my board right now, and I'm thinking, okay, if I'm at the Magic, who are my top 3 at that time, right? Because considering we got both Jalen's and Cade gone, we're saying hot take, Mobley's on the board. I'm Orlando because Toronto's not taking him. Okay, I'm just telling you right now.
I wouldn't think so, but you also have to say, if you're Toronto, we like Boucher, but if 4 pops up and there's not a guy there that we like, and we're not having the offer come in, there's no harm in taking Evan Mobley.
Kuminga and Barnes and Mobley on the board, right? There is a life and path that
they should go Barnes.
Mobley at 6, though. They should go Barnes.
If it's Toronto, that is the best fit for them.
And that would leave Kuminga for the Magic. It's not a bad fit. Kuminga with Orlando.
I mean, it would be very Orlando to go and take Kuminga, let Mobley go, and then they would probably go and draft like Corey Kispert at 8, and we would all be confused why Orlando did what they did, and then we'd be like, oh, right, it's Orlando.
That's right, and it's because Markelle Fultz is in the GM's ear, and it's just a weird situation at this point. Markelle Fultz is telling the GM to shoot his shot, and we're not even sure why that's happening that way. Okay, so the Mobley take for me is hot. OKC grabs Mobley at 6. Let's see what happens. Let me switch gears here on you. Damian Lillard, all over the news about him being happy, not happy, happy, unhappy. Let me just get your take on this. He is suiting up for which city next year?
Man, it makes me upset that it's come to this for Damian Lillard. And I know that they've tried, because they've tried to put pieces around him. Nurkic, McCollum. They tried to make the Norman Powell trade, which I didn't really understand because I thought Gary Trent and him were the same player, and then they also gave up an asset along with Trent, but that's a conversation for another day. Nurkic being there, they tried to bring in Cantor, Melo, which, by the way, Melo to the Lakers, lock it in for next year. But Lillard, it feels like a New York Knicks move because they can offer some young assets, and just overall, like, I hate to say it because I don't want it to be New York, but I just don't see a lot of teams with the assets to truly make a trade for Damian Lillard that could make it worth their while.
Yeah, I think it's going to end up calling it Dame Times Square. I think that's what it's going to end up being, right? He's going to be in New York, and that's going to be the
I haven't heard that one. That's quality. You better trademark
unique.
that.
That's unique. Dame Times Square. I really think that that he's going to be lighting it up in Dame time. Anyways, okay, I'll stop. But I do think Damian Lillard is gone. I don't know where. I don't know why the Rockets are aggressively pursuing. That makes no sense to me. If you're rebuilding, why push that rebuild with somebody who's 31? And let's circle back though. So like there's 6 or 7 teams aggressively pursuing for Damian Lillard. What do you get back if you're Portland? And do you just blow it up at that point? Do you get rid of CJ McCollum as well and send him somewhere where he can compete? Obviously Milwaukee's not looking for stars because they don't want to build super team next to Giannis. So they're just going to build organically continuing there. Yeah, so we'll move on from that take too. I do think New York or LA, it's the big lights, right? I could even make an argument for Chicago. I think they have pieces and assets to move to Portland.
Lillard, Levine, Vucevic isn't a terrible trio by any means.
Not for the East, and it's young enough to grow. So there's something in Chicago, and it's a big city, and it's got the limelight. So that's something. But the only reason I think that happens, Kenny, is because I think your team is crazy enough to do something like this, which is the LA Lakers are going to welcome Russell Westbrook to LA. Tre Rogers joining the show from Indonesia. Tre Rogers, how you doing, bud?
Great, fellas.
What's on the menu for this morning?
Mask on hand.
Mask on hand. I like your El Tree jersey there.
Yeah. Well, COVID finally made it to Bali, so we've got about 700 positives, which obviously to you guys might sound like nothing, but if we were at 0, 700 is quite a lot. So they did a partial lockdown, but people are still out, so it doesn't really matter. But let's see what happens.
In Bali, there's only like 720 people, right? I mean, that's just the population count.
Nah, there's
a lot, huh?
Like 50,000 or something.
Oh man.
Mostly foreigners, yeah, but.
Yeah, I just meant like, do you guys have like, is it like 50,000 of your like residents, or is it like 50,000 at a given time or in Bali?
Sorry, I was distracted by Kenny's new haircut, which obviously I hadn't seen in a while. I haven't seen you, so don't look at me like that.
Anyway, I like the beard thing going on there, Dre. I'm digging
well,
it.
I lent my brother the trimmer, and he hasn't given it back. So I
just figured you were going it out because Aaron Rodgers is basically facing retirement. So I thought you were just kind of riding the train.
Yeah, it's kind of the. Yeah, you got me.
Well, Dre, we're talking Russell Westbrook going to Los Angeles, and do we think that trade is going to happen? Kenny's already shaking his head no. I'm sorry I have to bring up the take, but it's what's popping right now, Kenny. I'll give you a percentage. Give me a percentage. Russ is in LA next year. What's your percentage?
30.
30%. That's high. That's high. Kenny, what are you at?
I think the fact that there's been so many reports about it, I would actually go even higher at 40. And
my gosh.
It makes me sad that it's come to that, but the thing is, LA, it all depends on, is Chris Paul going to pick up his player option? If he's not, then LeBron will call him the second he finds out.
Right.
If he opts in, LA's going to panic. Like, they know that the window is short. And I really hope that it's not Russell Westbrook, but I also just won't be overly surprised if it is.
Yep. I am completely with you. That is going to be interesting. I'm not a huge fan of Russell Westbrook. Of course, you probably know why, but excited to see what happens there. Matter of fact, I'm just excited for the offseason in general. As soon as the finals were over, I was like, let's go NBA draft time, NBA free agency. Let's open it up. So I'm ready to go. Yeah,
hey, when I got here, it actually said you were talking about Dames. Did you mention? Did you see that rumor about the Pistons that they're shopping the number 1 and they could actually do it to try to get Dames? You hear about that?
I didn't hear about that, but that is interesting. Portland at 1, getting Cade to replace Dame.
I think that's a terrible trade if you're Detroit.
Do they think they're ready for a run? Like, I mean, they had a bunch of studs, but they're young.
There's zero reason to trade for prime Damian Lillard when there's no one else on the roster outside of Jeremy Grant. Like, what does that get you? The 8 seed in the East? Congrats, guys. You just got bounced by Brooklyn in 4.
Yep. I don't know, but that's a crazy take, Dre. You're making me think now, and I don't like thinking that hard. All right, we are going to talk about 3 draft prospects. Kenny, we're going to listen to them, and then Kenny's going to start off the analysis. And we're going to start with Corey Kispert, the wonderful media group with BCMG. That's right, Mark Guajardo at It's Rated Mark put together this highlight reel. Let's take a look and see what he has in store for us. This is your first time looking or watching the Draft Command Center. We're basically going to go over some rumors we heard, what we feel with these players, and what we think the great fit is, and where we think they're going to fall in the draft. So take a look. Let's start off with Corey Kispert. Did it go? All right. Here we go.
By rule, it's good. It's called.
They should just go up and take a charge and roll.
Villanova and Michigan State, but these two are at the top of the heap when you talk about scoring.
Cook flips it back out, subs the extra pass for a Kispert 3.
How pretty is that? They force a miscues. Place back.
Watson in.
Murphy with 12.
Way downtown. Feel it.
Back of Watson turned over. Numbers for the Zags. Lob and the finish.
Nemhart sets up Kispert. Makes down another 3.
Well, he is pure.
So Kenny, you're talking about Kispert. He plays an all-around game with the Zags. When you first think about and you see his game, what do you think of first?
So I guess I'll give a bit of a spoiler. He's number 13 on my big board, which will be dropping on Friday as far as 10 through 20 goes. But he's the best shooter in this draft as far as from downtown. Now, as you'll see in the video, all of them are standstill shots. So he's going to be a drive and dish type of guy. If they find him in the corner, he's near automatic when it's from a standstill. He is an older player. He is the highest senior that I have on my draft board, which it's unfortunate that we're now at the point where, like, if you're a senior, then you automatically drop down a few spots just because you're an older guy. But one thing about it is he did play in the Zags offense, which had a ton of ball movement, which is what the NBA is. There's a lot of ball movement. It rarely sticks unless you've got, a guy like a Lillard or somebody who's just a great ISO player. There's not a highlight on here as far as defense goes. He's not anything special on defense, but his positioning is solid, which is something that I noticed when I was watching film on him. He has a quick release on the jumper. He gets to his spots. He's just a very smart player, and I think that comes with playing for Gonzaga. Like, Few is just a great coach at getting the very best out of his players as far as offense and defense, because he puts them in a position to win. So he's a guy where he could be Joe Harris or JJ Redick, but he has to get to the right spot. Like, if he goes to a team where they've already got shooters, he'll get lost in the shuffle and he'll probably be out of the league in a couple years. But if he does get to that team that has faith in him, because that's what Harris thrived on. He went to Brooklyn and they're like, you're going to start and you're going to be our shooter. JJ, when he was with the Clippers, the 76ers, They gave him a chance and said, "You're our starter. You're just going to hit shots for us." He could get that role on the right team.
Player comp, real quick, before I switch to Dre.
I think he's
Clay.
I don't think he's Clay good, because I think Clay is better at creating off the dribble. I'll say Joe Harris.
That's fair. Dre, what are your thoughts on Corey Kispert?
I mean, I like him. I think he's a great shooter, and I've seen a couple of mock drafts where he could land to the Warriors. So I mean, I just brought up Clay just because I heard in an interview that that's who he models his game to, and I think it's his favorite player too. So if he gets to play with the Warriors, he has your favorite player of all time to mentor you. And I think his shooting is ready. I think he could be a great player, and he just has to work on that defensive side of the ball. But yeah, I think he'll be a good player.
I think Joe Harris is a solid comparison. I had him as just a slightly smaller Kevin Love. I think that's where his game will really translate if he can stick and pop the three and keep from getting injured. I think that what he could evolve to, especially in a small ball era. But I love Corey Kispert. Right now he's 12 on my draft board, so I do think he's falling to a team like Charlotte or the Spurs, Pacers maybe. I don't have him in the top 10. Although some people think Golden State will reach and grab him at 7. I don't think that happens. I do think San Antonio grabs him if he's there. But let's move on. Let's talk Sharife Cooper, and we've had some debates on Sharife Cooper, especially around how tall he is. We'll let you be the judge on how tall Sharife Cooper is. Kenny has some stories for us as he got into some fights online with just how great Sharife Cooper is. But let's talk Sharife. Let's talk about the clips that we have, and another thanks and shout out to Mark.
Getting more screening action. If they're going to switch them, see certain switches, and they've got to be able to take advantage of different mismatches when they get it. And that's what Bruce Pearl talked to us a lot about. Not much elevation in it, very low release point. He's got to be able to make threes consistently at the net. For 2.
I talked about impacting the game in different ways. The Hawks flexing their muscles on the offensive. Still, that was a shot, though, right?
That was a shot. He's been rolling tonight, too.
Cooper. Cooper with the takeaway.
I will tell you this on one of those clips, especially that last one. I was definitely at a sports clips when I saw that highlight, because I had that sniff of that whiff of the mint come at me, and I was like, oh, I remember that play. Sharife Cooper, right? The debate is he 6 foot? Is he 6'4.5"? Is he 6'2"? We're not sure where he's landing on the spectrum at this point, but Kenny, he's Tre's saying way lower. He does look small, and he's 165. He can handle the ball. He holds himself well. Runs the lane on defense better than anybody, I think, in the draft. Kenny, your deal's about the size, right? It's all about the size.
I mean, first of all, in those clips, I saw him take one jump shot, which that's a concern with him, is that he's a great driver. He's super quick. He can get to the bucket. Jump shot's just a little bit inconsistent, but he is a freshman, so right away he's going to develop that over time. Now, there's no way that he's 6'2". I want to start off with that. The fact that people have even said 6'3", 6'4", there's not a chance. And I had a guy send me a Twitter reply because I said he reminds me a lot of a slightly taller Tyler Ulis, and Tyler Ulis is 5'8". So I'm thinking he's 5'11", 6 feet. That's kind of his range. Ulis wasn't a great shooter. He could get to the bucket, and that's what I ultimately see with this guy. But I was told that in a pre-draft interview, which therefore makes it a lock, he's 6'2". Now, I don't know if you've ever heard this, but players lie about their size all the time. Kevin Durant at one time said that he was 6'9". No, Kevin Durant's 6'11", 7 feet tall. He's he's a very tall guy, and you see it all the time when he's on the court. So, yeah, my concern with him is just if you're 5'11", 6 feet, and you're 165 pounds, yes, he's finishing at the bucket right now in traffic against college players. But when he drives in and he runs into PJ Tucker, when he runs into guys of that size, do I see him finishing over those guys? No, I don't. I really don't. Now, I think if he gets to 185, 190, he would be a great talent. But it's going to take a couple years, and he's the type of project player where I would like to draft him and put him in the G League for a year or two and just get him in the weight room and then bring him up, because there's no harm in bringing a guy up when he's 21 years old. But teams automatically think, well, he's our first rounder, we have to play him right away. And I just don't think that's the case with him. Defensively, he's serviceable because he's quick. I mean, we saw him, he can get in the passing lanes because he's quick, but on-ball defense, when he has to go up against those taller point guards, like imagine him trying to cover LaMelo Ball. Good luck. Yep. Like you just can't do it. And then what are you going to do? You're going to switch him off to go and play the shooting guard, who's also the same height as LaMelo Ball. Doesn't make any sense to me. So for me, he's a little bit lower on my board. He's closer to 18 for me. He might even start falling for me. And I think he will as the draft goes on. I think he's one of those guys who could tumble because a team's not willing to take a chance on a guy who looks like Tyler Ulis.
Player comp, real quick, before I go to Dre.
Taller Ulis.
Taller Ulis. There you go. I'll give you my take real quick, Dre. Sharife Cooper, my big board, I have him at 20. So a little bit lower than what Kenny has him. I do think there's potential for him to drop even lower for fit and for size concerns. Has not had a fantastic showing draft combine wise, nor pro day. So I do think that hurts quite a bit, especially with players coming out. My player comp to him is just an underdeveloped Tony Parker. That's where I'm at with him. I think he has the speed. I think he has the drive. Tony had to develop that mid-range for himself. He's going to have to do the exact same thing. And in this league, develop the three and consistently hit the three. So it's a very long road for him to be an impact player. You're looking at a few years, probably getting into his extension deal. But that's where it's an investment at this point. So that's why I have him lower in the first, if not at worst, a free fall to the beginning of the second. Steal for the Bucks if Sharife were to land there. Dre, what about you? What do you think about Sharife?
Do you know who you think he reminds me of? Rajon Rondo when he came into the league.
Yeah, it's a good comparison.
Exactly that type of player. Great ball handler. Can drive into the basket. Can always find the open guy. Can shoot when he wants to, but usually tends to miss most of the time. So his points will come from layups. And
that's my favorite quote Dre's ever said. he just doesn't make very many.
It's true, man.
It is. It's so true.
And he tries to defend what you just mentioned, that he'll try to defend those taller guards, but he won't. And he tends to lack defending from time to time too. So he's like a Harden. He'll defend whenever he feels like it, I guess. So yeah, very similar to Rajon Rondo, and probably kind of around the same height. 6'1". I think I like Kenny's 5'11", but I think he's that type of player.
Yeah, you're definitely not wrong. Let's go to our final draft prospect before we go over a rundown and the countdown preview for top 10 NFL running backs in fantasy football this year. Let's talk about Tre Mann. Tre Mann is an interesting draft prospect for many reasons. He has top 10 potential, but then his pits are really bad when he plays bad. So let's take a look at some of the highlight reels and go over our analysis for him. Again, courtesy of Mark Guajardo. And of course, this round and segment brought to you by Taquito Express, where we will be down there in less than a month, eating all-you-can-eat tacos in a live fashion, seeing how many we can scarf down. All right, Tre Mann, show us something. What you got, bud?
The assist to Jared Cross. And a three to answer from Mann. Mann has space for 8. Tre Mann with a team high 9, and Mann rolls it in. They had about 7 or 8 practices. just run some 5-on-none offensive sets because that's all they had available. Castleton off the delivery.
They kind of go hand in hand.
Man inside spinning, right hand good. Thomas now with 17 to lead LSU. Even the three. Take and make on high.
All right, Kenny. You have your chance here. Talk about Tre Mann. What do you see? What's your thought process on him?
I mean, for me, he's a walking bucket, as you can see in the highlights. He can beat you in a lot of different ways, which is what I like. He's able to drive, finish at the hoop. He can pull up in the mid-range. He can hit the three. I mean, he hit over 40% of his threes in college, which is really impressive. And what I like the most about him is that he played his best basketball when it mattered. In the SEC tournament last year, he had 30 in the SEC final against Tennessee. He looked nearly unstoppable out there. That's why he shot up draft boards as much as he did, because of performances like that down the stretch. He rebounds pretty well for a guy his size. He's another guy, though. He's pretty small. Like, he's only, I think, 185, which is a tad concerning if you're a shooting guard in the league. I'd like to see him closer to that 195, 200 range, but that's something where over time, especially when you're a young player like him, like, not everyone's going to come in with the NBA body, right? Like, we've been in the weight room for years. Like, he's a guy who's a hooper. He can get buckets. For me, if I had to do a player comp for him, he reminds me a lot of Jordan Clarkson, just a little bit smaller than Jordan Clarkson for me. Because Clarkson, I think Tre Mann is, if you are drafting and you need that six man to give you 15 points off the bench, 20 points off the bench, he's your guy. And he's got to become more well-rounded at finding open teammates and all that stuff. But he also didn't have a lot of help at Florida, so it's tough to say if he is a good passer.
That is true. That is true. Dre, how do you feel about the man?
I think Kenny's dead on point. He's a great scorer. I think he'd be a pretty solid player. I think he's closer to like an Eric Bledsoe type of guy. He's got good size. He can create. Good shots. Good. He's good on defense. He needs to work a little bit more on the defensive side of the ball. But yeah, I think he'd be a solid pick. And just throwing this out there, I know we love those CBS incredible mock drafts. I saw this crazy one that has him going at top 5. So
I have Tre Mann on my big board. I think he's down. Let me look at it. He is down at 19. And I had Sharife at 20. So I have Tre Mann at 19. Sharife I actually have him in the same tier, down at the bottom. Mid to bottom.
You know where Mann is on my board?
Where is he at?
12.
Wow, that's pretty high.
I really like him. When I'm looking at these teams that just missed the playoffs, like, they probably just need that extra scorer, that extra guy to contribute on that end that would ultimately take them over the top. Like, look at a team like Chicago. Yeah, they have scoring in Levine and Vucevic, but what do you do when he's off the floor? You need another guy that can come in and get a bucket. And so that's why, if a guy like Tre Mann is there, I don't know why you wouldn't take him. I mean, their defense, they clearly don't care about defense in Chicago anyways when they have Levine and Vucevic. So what's the harm in taking another scorer at this point? Outscore teams 130 to 128.
Yep, absolutely agree. I have to ask you, Kenny, since I have you on your big board.
Would you draft him? Oh, would you draft him over Josh Giddey or whatever his name is?
No, because Giddey's a little bit higher for me. He'll actually be on my final big board, like my 1 through 10 list. I just see a lot of talent in him, and he tends to fade on guys' boards because it's like the unknown of, oh, well, he's not playing in the States. Well, guys are like, scouting teams are going to watch this guy play. Like, I don't know what you're concerned about. Like, they said the same thing about Luka Doncic. Oh, look what happened there. Like, he clearly is good. If he's doing it against grown men, then he's probably good for a
Bust.
player that young. Yeah, absolute bust. Trae Young for sure. Shout out Will Latham.
Yeah. Trae Young was the right pick. What a bust. All right. So, Kenny, I have to know who's 23 and 24 on your big board real quick before we move to the NFL.
23 and 24 on my big board. I've got Cameron Thomas at 23, and I've got Jaden Springer at 24.
Okay with both of those. All right, so that's good to go with me. Let's move over. Here is your sneak peek NFL edition top 10 countdown, top running backs of the 2021 season as you're entering those fantasy drafts. Where are your fantasy picks? Where are your loyalties lying at the running back position? Guys, we're going to start off at 10 and work our way upward, if that's all right with y'all. Dre, you might be put on the spot here, so if you're trying to grab a list real quick, that is fine with me. We'll start with Kenny. Kenny, number 10.
Number 10 for me entering the year, I would go Antonio Gibson.
Antonio Gibson. Very, very interesting. Number 10 for me is going to end up being, drum roll while Dre gets his list. Are we good? Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon at 10 for me. If he's healthy, he'll have a great year. I think Joe Mixon is going to be a dual threat this year, top 10.
Are you not concerned that Cincinnati is going to be leading a lot of games or trailing in a lot of games and therefore abandon the run, and Burrow's going to be throwing it to Chase and all those guys?
It worries me a little bit, but even when in one of Joe Mixon's best years, Cincinnati trailed, I think 55% of the time, and he was fine fantasy wise. Plus, they actually use him in the passing game, so I'm okay with them. Giovanni Bernard's gone, right? So who's going to back him up? Right, so 10 Mixon. Dre, who's number 10 for you?
I actually like Kenny's pick, Antonio Gibson. I heard he's working on his passing routes, so he was pretty dangerous on the ground, and if he's able to stay on the field on third downs, then he's going to be pretty good. So yeah, I'll go with him too.
Fantastic. Number 9, Kenny.
Number 9 for me is Aaron Jones, but this is also hinging on who's going to be playing quarterback for them. I don't know if they're going to reconcile with Rodgers, which is just it's so insane to me. And my fiance is probably crying at the thought of Aaron Rodgers not suiting up for the Packers. But yeah, I would go Aaron Jones, but I will say if it is not Rodgers, I would go with DeAndre Swift if we're going full point PPR.
It is full point PPR. Just a shout out to Graham. Graham, I haven't talked to you in a while. Glad to hear from you, buddy. Sup, boys? Hashtag BCMG. Feel the love. Appreciate you, man. Number 9 for Dre Rodgers.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go with Kenny this time. I mean, I have a lot of love for Aaron Jones, but quarterback situation and I'm not sure about him. Plus, we've got AJ Dillon. He's getting great reviews, and I heard that he's probably going to be on the field almost as much as Aaron Jones. So who knows? So I actually have him going a little bit around 13, 14. And I'm going to put my first craziness here. That I know Kenny loves my craziness. So I'm going to put up J.K. Dobbins all the way up to number 9.
I don't hate that at all. I mean, they have a quarterback that's a running back, but that being said, he also can't throw, so he's going to be handing it off a lot. And Dobbins, Gus Bus has kind of faltered quite a bit on draft boards. And Paul and I even talked about Dobbins last night on our show, and we're in agreement that we think he's going to have a good year for them.
I am going a completely different direction than both of you, and I am going to put up my surprise in the top 10. David Montgomery goes 9 for me. You can't put everything on Fields. He's also going to be a dual threat quarterback, in my opinion, but you're also going to have to lean on the run game in Chicago.
Wait! Don't they have Dallas Cowboys starting quarterback Andy Dalton at the helm this year?
No, he's definitely taking a backup role. So
do you truly not believe that Andy Dalton will start week 1?
I truly don't believe that. I think Fields is under center week 1.
I think Dalton starts 6 games and royally screws it up, and then it's Fields' job.
No, Not at all. I think Fields has a starting gig week 1.
Okay.
Chicago are idiots. All right, number 8. Let's do this one. Who's your number 8? Kenny.
I'm going to go Nick Chubb at number 8 because Kareem Hunt is a human being on that roster. Like, and people all the time are like, man, Nick Chubb is so good. And it's like, yeah, Kareem Hunt is also so good and he catches all the passes. So he's just going to take that away. And so Chubb, I would not be taking if I'm in the middle of the first round. I would think about it later in the first round. So for me, Chubb at 8.
All right. Dre Rogers, who's your number 8?
Oh, there we go. I was clicking on that unmute. We're doing PPR, right? Yep. So I like Austin Eckler. He's going to come back from that injury from last year. Chargers offense was kind of clicking last year, and they had so many injuries. So I think he's going to be back on the field, coming with a vengeance, and he's a third down back. So I think he's great for number 8.
Great for number 8. Number 8 for myself is going to be Darrell. I'm just kidding. It's not Darrell Henderson. All y'all calm down out there. It is Jonathan Taylor for me. I think Jonathan Taylor is going to have a great year this year. Going to be the focal man in an offense that's going to be running around Carson Wentz with familiarity in that offense another year. Barring injury, he's in my top 10. Number 7 for me is going to be Nick Chubb. We've already talked about why I think Nick Chubb is behind a fantastic offensive line. Kenny.
So I want you to take note of who I'm picking because this is my hot take probably for the entire year of who's going to be missing from my list.
Uh-oh.
So at number 7 is Jonathan Taylor for me. I really like him. Marlon Mack coming back. I know everyone makes the joke about like, well, yeah, but how does this affect Marlon Mack? Well, Marlon Mack will play a role in that offense, so that'll hurt his value much like Hunt hurts Chubb's value, but I still think he's their first and second down back, and I think Indy's going to have a good year, so Taylor at 7.
All right, Dre.
I'm going to go with Nick Chubb here.
Oh, we're chubbing it up at 7, huh? All right. So Nick Chubb at 7 for us. Number 6, Dre. Who's number 6 for you?
I also have a little surprise like Kenny, so I'm going to go with Jonathan Taylor here.
Okay, so Jonathan Taylor kind of crossing board at 6, 7, 8. Kenny.
I'm going Zeke at 6. I
Zeke.
think he has a bounce back year. I really do. That offense was way different. They had O-linemen down last year. They had no Dak. I think it hurts them. It's probably my Cowboys bias coming in, but I'm going to roll with Zeke at 6.
You're perfectly fine.
I can at least own up to my Cowboys, fandom.
Yeah. If mine ever came out, I definitely would let you know. 6 for me is Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara comes in at 6 for me, and no bias aside, I just think that with the Drew Brees gone, we saw how he was when the quarterback change happened last year. That was not a top 10 fantasy running back. So get ready, Alvin Kamara lovers, because it's going to be a really rough season for you. Kamara is my 6th, though, at top, because I think eventually you just have to feed him the ball, no matter who's there. And so I think he grabs some BS points at the end of games, and that keeps him up in the top 10. But 6 for me. All right, top 5, guys. Let's run through these. Give me 5 through 2, Kenny.
Number 5 is Austin Eckler. Full point PPR.
Wow.
That guy is going to catch passes. With Justin Herbert there, they do not have Hunter Henry anymore, so one less weapon for him. It's basically Keenan Allen and who? So for me, Eckler has a ton of value. Kamara at 4. I agree. I don't think without Breeze, it's going to hurt. I really hope Jameis suits up this year because I just know that that's just a social media frenzy if Jameis Winston is the starter over Taysom Hill. At number 3, I'm going Derrick Henry. He just doesn't do it for me because he's not going to catch many passes. He'll have a ton of yards, but just no receptions. At number 2, I have Christian McCaffrey.
Holy cow. Hold on. I've got 2 big names on my list that you're leaving out of the top 10. And I am shocked right now. Give me your number 1. I don't even want to wait.
No. We'll build the suspense.
We're going to wait. Okay. Dre, give me 5 through 2. I'm shocked.
All right. For 5, I've got Kamara. 4, I'm gonna go with Barkley. I think he'll be pretty good this year. That offense is. I mean, Daniel Jones sucks, so they got to go on the ground, and I think he'll have a pretty good, solid season. Number 3, I'm gonna go with Dalvin Cook. Number 2, the big guy, Derrick Henry, and I guess we'll wait on number 1. So I'm also missing somebody as well as Kenny.
It is true. You're missing somebody as well. It's going to piss me off if Zeke's not one for you. All right,
Yes, exactly.
Number 5 for me is Saquon Barkley. So Barkley is in my top 5, unlike I think Kenny, who left him out of the top 10 completely, but we'll get there. Number 4 is Ezekiel Elliott. I also have him having a bounce back year. He looks slim, trim, and strength. Again, if I love the Cowboys, I'd probably have him higher, but my unbiased opinion of him at 4 is pretty universal. Number 3 for me, Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry will have a great year. There's just so many weapons in Tennessee now that I don't know if they're going to have huge leads, and I don't know necessarily they're going to keep them in the game long term. Again, injuries have seemed to pop up at the end of season, which is prohibiting them from having long runs or deep runs in the playoffs. So we'll have to see what goes on with Derrick Henry. Number 2, Christian McCaffrey. Let's go number 1 for Kenny. Who's being left off your top 10?
Well, Dalvin Cook's my number 1.
Saquon's out.
I really think Dalvin's going to have a really good year. He catches passes. Minnesota, I mean, given the uncertainty around Rodgers, you're going to have 6 not relatively tough divisional games. And so I think overall it plays in their favor. They've also got Jefferson and Thielen, so they can't really crowd the box on Dalvin as much as Kirk Cousins can be primetime Kirk Cousins. So Dalvin's at 1. Now, I want to clarify why Saquon is not on my list.
Nope.
I don't get to clarify?
Injury prone or what?
He tore his ACL last year. What indication is there that he's coming back at 100%? All the guys that I just listed are going to have better years than him.
Austin Eckler's coming off an injury.
Yeah, but I trust Eckler to catch passes. I don't trust Saquon to catch passes. It's full point PPR.
You're absolutely right. Colt McCoy's gone.
Their starter's not there anymore. Like, come on, guys. They got Kenny Golladay, too, who's always on the field, right? So, like, there's no uncertainty in New York.
You're absolutely right, Kenny. I shouldn't doubt you. Dre, who's your number 1?
Mr. Number 1, brought to you by Taquito Express, is Christian McCaffrey. So yeah, I'm doing it. I'm taking Zeke off the top 10 just because you got to remember you got Tony P and
elite Tony Pollard.
You guys haven't understood yet that your head coach loves to play his backup running back as much as possible. So you're gonna start seeing a balance there. So trust me, it's gonna happen.
Dalvin Cook for me at number 1. That's blasphemous. Blasphemous from the wonderful Dre Rogers. And he's absolutely right by his take when it comes to this is brought to you by Taquito Express. All you can eat tacos for $8.99 down in the beautiful Brownsville, Texas, where you will find 20 of your wonderful BCMG faces. That is right. 20 of us will be down in South Texas, August 19th through the 23rd. We'll be getting together, doing live shows, the Hoopathon with Triple Double, and having wonderful Taquito Express tacos. We're very excited about that. So many great things planned, guys. If you can come out and see us, come out and see us. If you can help us with the Hoopathon, come out and help out, get one of these young athletes to college and on scholarship. So thank you guys so much. You know what? Today has been fantastic. Let's start off. Kenny, where can people find you?
You can find me on all social platforms at shooters_pod. Paul and I do our live show every Tuesday night at 8:15 Eastern time. You can also find a lot of my content at offtheballnetwork.com. Got my weekly golf betting article there, as well as my NBA draft pieces. On Friday, I've actually got part 6 dropping. That's players 20 through 11. We talked about a few of them tonight, but give the full breakdown of those guys there. Obviously, it has been too long for me not being on ITL. I will be back And as Ernest said, you got to trust me because I'm the Dynasty champ. I'm the NFL Pick'em champ. Like, the knowledge is there, so be sure to tail it.
I do say the knowledge is there. Don't think about the champ part. But thank you, Kenny, very much. Kenny Cotterill with Off the Ball Podcast, the Off the Ball Podcast Network. Tre Rogers making an appearance with us tonight.
I was here last week as well.
I know,
I
you
don't
just
know what
kept
you're
cutting in
talking
and out.
about.
Yeah, you're
And
cutting
I was
in
here
and out.
2 weeks ago too. The Kenny's the one that's making an appearance.
Dre, how can the people follow your extravagant adventures in Bali?
Well, if you want to follow my extravagant adventures, you got to go to my Instagram, Trade2125. Ernest keeps saying it's a great follow, so you guys can follow our fellow leaders' advice and go do that. Or you could follow me on Twitter. I've actually been off it for quite some time. I don't know why, but I'll reply to your message anyway. Dre2124. So.
Well, thank you, Dre. Really appreciate you being here. Of course, I am Ernest Silva, the host of the Untitled Podcast. You can find me at the Sport Gene for some inactivity, or find us on where you're watching us tonight, right? At Untitled Pod, where you can find all of our great content. We thank you so much for joining us tonight. Again, tons of great stuff happening in August for BCMG, but catch next week's draft. We don't have anybody live doing interviews. We don't have any sort of a giveaways planned right this second, but we are excited because we're allocating everything into the retreat. Right now, it's just straight analysis on where your player is going to get picked, and that is what's most important. So come join us that night. We're going to have live reactions, hopefully a live feed going, and we appreciate your support. Thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of the week.